a good amount of material here. I want to definitely have some dialogue back and forth. Save some time for Q&A at the end. I may, field a couple questions as we're going through, but try and keep most of that. And I have some questions for you, because one of the great things about coming to these events is I get to speak to the community, our customers, our partners, and get feedback. I know you're all more than willing to give feedback. Yeah, thanks, John. You're all. Somebody please sit down. So, very happy to be down here at NWLUG. This is my third, I believe. I was last year Grand Rapids, Indianapolis the year before. Richard and crew put on a great event. So I'm really pleased to see that it continues to grow at capacity, and I certainly see good things for it in the future. But what we're going to talk about now is I kind of had a little bit of a short interlude there in the keynote, but focusing in on where we're going from an application development perspective here for Domino. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. What we're planning here for our next release, and then the initiatives that we're working on with respect to Bluemix, which I alluded to earlier today. So let's just get right into it. Actually, before we do, let me just ask a few questions. So I'll just ask it this way, because I think the table certainly turned. Who is not on 9.x? 1, 2, and a combination thereof?
Yeah, my client. I have a client not. That's the trouble. I am, but I have a client.
Yeah. Okay. So 8.5x.
Yeah.
Okay. But everybody else, being the developers that you are,
But we will be.
you're up to 9. It's always you guys pushing the envelope. That's great. Okay. So that would be 99.9%. Who's dealing with Notes apps still? Notes client apps? Everybody raise your hand. All right. Very good. All right. Let's see, so that's 100%. 99.9. Who's dealing with XPages applications right now? Yay! Very good. All right. So I would say 80%. Excellent. Have a seat. There's a couple seats up here. There's a few over here. So please come on in. All right. So that's good. Who's using? So. For those of you who are using XPages, who's using the XPages extension library from OpenNTF? Okay, so I would say probably 50% of you who are using XPages are using that. Okay, and then here's the other kind of curveball. Who's using dots? Who knows what dots is?
Two different questions.
Okay,
Yes.
two different questions. So for those of you who know what dots is, who's using it? Nobody's using dots?
Not supported. We want to. It's not supported.
Doesn't, I know, but that's why we're asking. That's why we're asking these questions. But I know that people who, even though it's not supported, are definitely using it. I mean, I know customers, I know partners, I know partners who are using it in customer situations. Domino OSGI Tasklet Service. So we added this OSGI framework into Domino. It's a great way to bring in Java code as opposed to using the more traditional approach of CAPI, and so we're adding tasks. A lot of people like it because of its modularity, the ability to easily go ahead and bring that into Domino. It's been there in a supported manner for the open social components you see in the Nodes client, but it has yet to be a formally supported thing for application developers to take advantage of. I certainly would like to make it available. It's just a matter of priorities and things like that, and resources, as it always is. So that's it for my questions for now. Thank you very much for that feedback. So let's roll. So yes, we're going to be talking about a lot of future stuff. Don't make your purchasing decisions based on that. Deploy what we sell now. So I just broke it down to talk about Domino on premises. We're going to then focus on Domino on Bluemix, and then we have some summary and FAQs. I think as we go through this, a lot about, it'll will unfold. But what we're doing from a Bluemix perspective certainly gets benefits from what we do on premises. So what we're working on now from an app dev perspective, the Bluemix initiative certainly. We've had focus on a number of various things: responsive web design for XPages, relational data sources, encryption, signature support. We're going to go into all these things in more details, but productivity enhancements to support these new capabilities, some improvements for build management, REST API enhancements, NSF enhancements. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then this is the only mention of this in this deck, but the next release of Notes and Domino will have Java 8 in it. When we ship the support will be instantaneous. When the product is delivered, downloaded from Passport Advantage, Java 8 will be there.
What's Java?
So obviously everybody's been hammering, If we could ever get to the point where we could actually separate Java from our platform so that you have the ability to bring in Java yourself and we certify it against various versions, yes, that would be a huge benefit, I think, not only for you obviously, but for us. And so that's something we're thinking about. Can't say when or if, but
Kill the Notes client, we'll be okay.
I'm not going to ask that.
What the sales guy in the room?
Eclipse?
I mean, the guy hanging from the rafters?
I have water. There's plenty of water. All right. So, who's doing responsive web development right now? Okay. And you're using Bootstrap for the most part to do that? Yep. Okay. Who's using the Bootstrap? The XPages responsive capabilities from OpenNTF. Okay, so a bit. All right. So, and others are just bringing it on your own. So, as we've been talking about this for a bit, and if you haven't heard this, that's why I want to touch the subject. Is that we have incorporated Bootstrap into the XPages framework to make it very easy for you to go ahead and get that responsive look and feel with your XPages applications. Obviously, this morning there was a mention of One UI. There was a lot of that. So I think, when it first came out, ooh, it's all finding a chance, fancy, shiny. That was 4 or 5 years ago. So people are looking for something else, and I think sort of the trend is towards, leveraging Bootstrap for responsive designs and a better look and feel. So there's two things that we deliver here. We have two new themes in Domino Designer. There's both based on Bootstrap 3.2 currently. That's what's up in the extension library. I think, by the time that we ship this next release of Domino, we'll be updating that. And I think, so right now we're focusing in on our next on-premises release. The other thing that we're going to be talking about is Bluemix. On-premises releases, got to build up a lot of momentum, package everything up, get it out to the customers. Cloud, continuous delivery. So the ability for us to then have a supported runtime and framework up in the cloud will allow us to move certain things forward much more quickly than we could have in the past on premises. Keeping those things in sync, that's a challenge we'll have to deal with. Those of you who are using in XPages, we have the layout control that allows you to give an overall look and feel and structure to your application. We've had that in XPages now for a number of releases, but from a Bootstrap responsive design perspective, we have the ability now to go ahead and impart that same look and feel within the context of the layout control. So there's, once again, the responsive Bootstrap configuration and then a simple responsive configuration. The difference there is that basically, if you've ever looked at the layout control, it has a lot of properties, it allows you to tweak a whole bunch of things. A lot of that may be unnecessary for what you're trying to accomplish. If you just want to get a very simple responsive look and feel, you would select that one. There are 3 new responsive controls in the extension library when this came out in V12. So we have a carousel control That allows you to go ahead and basically have graphics and slides up there within your experience here. It allows you to have a slide, name, caption, the ability to go ahead and link to the resources you want to go directly from there. So that's nice. The nav bar control, we have the fixed top and we have the David Leedy feature, which is the fixed bottom here. That was something that David was requesting for a little while. We were happy to deliver that as part of this. So the nice thing here is that these nav bar controls are built into the layout control, but they're also dedicated controls. So if you don't want to use the layout, you can go ahead and take advantage of these directly by just using those controls. And then lastly, the dashboard control. So we have a nice dashboard control that you can go ahead and use and configure to allow people to easily navigate through your applications. And we're going to see a bit of this here in a bit. Brian Gleason was the lead developer out of Dublin who worked on this. And he put together a really nice to-do application which allows you to go ahead and see how he went ahead and built this. It's delivered as part of the extension library, so you can go ahead and download that, and it gives you a good working example to see how to leverage the responsive capabilities we've added to the framework. So relational data source, this has been something that we've had up on OpenNTF for a while. People have been saying, we need it to be supported. In order for us to be able to use this in our production environments, we need IBM to support it. So this is another feature that's coming in the next release. Obviously, long history of integrating relational databases with Notes and Domino, be it through ODBC, LCLSX, LEI, or any of the other ways that you want to do it. Even JDBC, certainly people have been doing that for a while. So what this does is it takes advantage of the capabilities that we have, because XPages is built on Java, the ability to go ahead and leverage JDBC. We can go ahead and integrate any basically data source that has a JDBC driver. One of the things that was enhanced, which you may not be aware of, was connection pooling. Connection pooling is really important because it allows you to kind of have a pool of connections. One of the very things that takes resources and time when you're going ahead and integrate with an external system is that actual authentication and establishment of that connection. If you have a pool, then you can pull an existing connection when somebody needs to go ahead and fetch some data, let's say, from a relational database. So we had a very simple one. We upgraded that to Apache Commons connection pooling, so that's a much more robust implementation. I think that was something that people were certainly looking for. And then the other thing is you need to go ahead and configure the JDBC driver to work with the runtime here. And so we created a JDBC driver plugin wizard that wraps your JDBC driver as an OSGI plugin. So, before this is a much a manual process here, this kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting for you and makes it easy to go ahead and create that plugin. It produces an update site, which then can be deployed to a Domino server. And it's basically the recommended approach to go ahead and leveraging or bring in a JDBC driver for use with XPages. Document encryption and signature support for XPages. So Notes, Domino, very long history, one of the strong value props is around security. One of the cool things about it was the ability not only to encrypt traffic and encrypt data at rest at the database level, but to fine-grained encryption of specific documents and even portions of documents, as well as signing of documents. So what that leverages our PKI infrastructure to basically, have these encryption keys associated with a Notes ID that either were public or private ones that you would create and share with somebody. So that way, if I only wanted David to be able to read a document, I would share this private encryption key with him, and when he goes to open it, provided he added that to his ID, he would be able to read that document. So if you're in insurance, if you're in banking, this has been something that's really been important. As these customers have moved to the web, how can I go ahead and use this from XPages? The problem there is, where is that encryption key stored? It's in the Notes ID file. How do you get to that from the web? A little bit of a challenge there. So yeah, with iNotes, they have a way to deal with encrypted mail, but that wasn't suitable really for productions. Along came the ID Vault. The ID Vault now had this ability to store IDs in this repository that you could get access to. We didn't have APIs that allowed you to do that, but we internally could do that. So, there's a couple things that need to fall in place. The ID fell into place. We need to give APIs, and we need to go ahead and build the connectors into XPages to allow you to do that. So that's what we're talking about here. You know, giving this capability that's been, you know, important for Notes client applications to the web. So, you know, both the encryption capability as well as the signature capability. Yeah, exactly, apparently. I didn't go to the museum tour, so I don't know. So we've done a number of things here. We have a new key picker control that will allow you to do. We have some add functions within XPages that allow you to go ahead and do that. The ability to get, you know, the secret key for the user, the ability to get, you know, the user ID here. So things that allow you to easily go ahead and get access to the ID vault during the runtime. We also have, you know, what's those add functions are built on top of low-level APIs, like the C API, you know, that's what they're built on top of, Java and Lotus script. So the thing that's interesting here is that, you know, we're using this to benefit ourselves from an XPages perspective, but, you know, there's APIs are going to be accessible to you as developers. So maybe you're not using XPages, but you do have a need to get to the ID vault and work with IDs. So, you know, we'll have the various language bindings available to you there. All right, NSF enhancements. So, we talked a little bit about this at Connect. There is a new thing that, one of the problems when you're working with view indices are, you know, you've got users using documents, you've got an indexer there that needs to update the index. People are going ahead and doing read and write operations against that index, and at times there can be contention in there, and that's when you see performance start to degrade because, you know, the indexer is in contention with read and write operations that are being generated by users or applications or whatever. So what they've done here is we've provided a dedicated background thread for maintaining critical view indices. And it could really improve performance. This was, you know, done originally. You know, there's some customers that were just really struggling with some applications. It was done as a hot fix. We then got it available in actually 901 Fix Pack 3. Some of our partners here worked with the customer to implement some things that raised a few issues that, oh, we couldn't quite disable what we just enabled correctly. So if you're going to use this feature, I recommend you use 901 Fix Pack 4. There is a tech note out there that gives you a lot more details on this. So I encourage you to go ahead and look at that. But it's a real good way to alleviate and improve view performance. Store database views on disk, basically outside the NSF. This is something, you know, we've been kind of talking about with the community for a while. Finally, you know, we're going to be able to deliver it here in this next release. I think it's really important because, as you know, everything from design to data to view indices are stored within the NSF. We do have a limit, if you're not aware of that, it's 64 gigabytes. I don't have an update on that, unfortunately, for you today. But if we can take the view indices outside of the NSF, then that gives you a lot more headroom for data. So that's a nice thing. Then you can put the index on on that same drive or on maybe a different drive that would be more performant than where you're storing your data. The other thing is that, you know, it also will save you on backup operations because you're no longer backing up the view index. When you restored that view index, it was probably out of date anyway, so why back it up to begin with? So it's another really good benefit there. Here's one that people have been struggling with for a little while. Just a little while. So we have current releases. We have various limits. 64 kilobytes per document. Yes, we've all hit that. 32 kilobytes per field and per view entry. I have good news. Maybe not as much good news as you would like to hear, but I have pretty good news that we are going to be increasing this to 16 megabytes per document here. So that's a huge, alleviates a lot of problems that, we've been seeing over time. These two, still need a little work. Those are a little bit more challenging to overcome. But we have our eye on things here, and hopefully we get some relief on those in the not too distant future. But that is definitely a big benefit. So, all right. How am I doing on time? Everybody's back from lunch? Okay. All right. So, what we're going to talk about now is Domino on Bluemix. So, if you've been following any of the various, if you were connected, we talked about it down there. We've done a lot of various enablement through webinars and things like that. So you may have seen some of this information. For those of you who haven't, this is going to be new. So Bluemix, IBM. We have SaaS, software as a service SaaS offerings. We have Connections Cloud. We have IBM First. We have Connections Chat, Social, etc. We have infrastructure as a service. That's our soft layer acquisition. So that gives you the infrastructure on which you can run cloud-based offerings. In between those two is something called platform as a service, or PaaS. And Bluemix is IBM's foray into platform as a service here. What that means is it gives you as developers a cloud-based platform on which you can develop, run, and maintain and manage those various applications here. So what Bluemix does is it gives you it's built on open standards here and allows you to go ahead and build applications and run those up in this PaaS environment. The operative word, as I mentioned in the OGS this morning, really here is mixed because we have a number of various runtimes, and what we're going to be talking about is the XPages runtime here that can then be bound to one or more services. So the mix really alludes to the fact that you have a multitude of services at your disposal, and you can mix the content, etc., from those services into one application very easily. Yes, people have been doing this for forever, on premises, but it takes a lot of coordination between you as the owner of the Domino platform and maybe the owner of SAP or Oracle or SQL or Salesforce or whatever. Here, all that heavy lifting to coordinate those interactions is done for you, which is a very nice thing. The other thing is really, you can certainly go ahead and scale your instances very easily, but it also gives you levels of resiliency. If something goes wrong with your Domino server, your application, that can be detected, it can be brought down, it can be brought right back up. If there's some underlying problem with the hardware, that automatically gets addressed for you, so that's really nice. Not only can you leverage cloud services within your applications, but you can actually go directly against on-premises environments. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Layered security, so we're taking care of the various security here that as far as access to that, and then we're taking advantage of our own security that we have built into our Domino platform here. And then various flexible pricing. It is really that kind of cloud pricing model here where you're renting basically a set of capabilities for a time. So while you're using rapidly bringing products to market at a lower cost, continually deliver functionality to their application, just like we are benefiting from the ability to have IBM First, Connections Social, etc. as cloud-based services, we can continually go ahead and update those, and it's happening all the time. Same thing for you from an application perspective. You can easily go ahead and roll out new capabilities to your applications. Domino, as you know, has always, that RAD mantra has been true because it really is easy. A lot of other software development stacks out there are much, much more challenging here. But one of the nice things here is that, it also gives you a lot of development operations here to really manage the overarching life cycle of your applications much more easily than you could on premise. And then really to extend those existing investments in IT infrastructure, and that's speaking to the hybrid. So why would you want to go ahead and use XPages for Domino on Bluemix? To modernize your applications, just as you've been doing on premises with your applications. You want to go ahead and move those to the web. You want a more modern look and feel. XPages gives you that route to do that. To always have the state of the, basically the latest runtime capabilities at your fingertips. So once again, we're going to be able to move the XPages runtime forward much more quickly and in a supported manner than we can on premises, and you wouldn't have to necessarily rely on the OpenNTF extension library, which would be unsupported, because we're going to pull that in. We know the quality of it. We support it all the time, and you know it would be there in your production environments. And then to scale your apps and really offer true resiliency. So, just a quick cheat sheet. There's 3 things that we are primarily focused on delivering here from a Domino perspective. The XPages runtime. The runtime is basically it's a web container. It's a set of resources that allow you to go ahead and run your applications here. There are many other kinds of runtimes out there. There's Liberty for Java. There's Node.js. So those are all really good runtimes too, obviously, from a Bluemix perspective that you can use against a Domino backend or other backends. The service here, this is really where we're talking about using the NSF and the platform and security around the NSF as a database service here. So we have the XPages NoSQL database service here. We'll get more into that in a minute. But basically, it allows you to use that NSF data store within the cloud against the XPages runtime or against other runtimes. To allow you as a developer to easily experience this and start to see the value of this combination, we have what's a boilerplate. It's basically a template that brings together the runtime with a service. In this case, it's the XPages runtime with the XPages NoSQL database service. And we also package in there the to-do application, which I was alluding to before. And it allows you to quickly go ahead and within minutes get that up and running on top of Bluemix. So let's take a look at the architecture here for a second. So as you know, Domino, one of the beauties of it from a RAD perspective has been this nice self-contained environment for packaging up your applications. You had your designs and your data all stored within the same NSF. With XPages, we allowed you to have the design of XPages and data in a separate NSF because you broke that UI layer from data layer, and you can separate that. In Bluemix, we had to conform to that separation of runtime from data, and that's what we're doing here. In order to bring Domino up to Bluemix, we had to separate the design from the data. So we still leverage the NSF as our container for housing design elements. The thing is that up in the runtime, we just have design elements. If you tried to store data up here, you could, but it would not be safe because this can be torn down and stood back up by Bluemix itself. So if you want to persist data, you need a data storage service. And here, that's where the XPages NoSQL database service comes into play. In order for these two to communicate, there's this thing called a service broker, and that allows us to go ahead and create a service instance of this. So here we see we have an expense application. We actually have 2 instances of this running, and that was something that's very easy to configure up in Bluemix, talking against the data NSF for that. Here we have a different one, the to-do, going against the to-do data NSF. You would go ahead and from Domino Designer, you would be able to go ahead and deploy designs directly up to the Bluemix runtime. If you needed to go ahead and modify let's say, the forms and views that define the metadata for your documents or your data document collections, which would be done through views, you could do that from Designer going directly against the service here. So let's go ahead and do a bit of a walkthrough here of Bluemix. So actually what I want to do is just kind of start off here because that's where you would start off, and then we'll come back over here in a second. Hopefully we still have connectivity. We do? Okay. So first thing is you're going to come into Bluemix, and you're going to be presented here with the home page as I mentioned, we are out there as an experimental service. An experimental service is really pre-beta. So you're going to want to go ahead and know where to find that. So the first thing you can do is you can come into the catalog here. And this is a general Bluemix catalog. And what you see here are, once again, boilerplates, which are also referred to as starters. We have the various runtimes. We now have containers, which are new up there. And then we have various services. So because we are an experimental service, these are ones that are suited here for production capabilities. So they've gone ahead and changed it from when they first started with Bluemix here, they've added what's referred to as the Bluemix Lab. So you would scroll to the bottom here of the catalog page and click on the Bluemix Labs catalog here. And so here, this is where you're going to find various experimental services. Where you see the boilerplate here, we'll get back to this in a second. But we have our runtime, we have the XPages runtime, and if we scroll on further down, we see we have the XPages NoSQL database service. So from here, what we can do is we can go ahead and create an application using this web starter. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And hopefully, we will have decent connectivity and be able to. All right, so we're going to create a new name for our application. And I'm just going to say, go ahead and create. And so what this is going to do is taking the XPages runtime and the NoSQL database, it's creating a new application using that runtime bound to that service that we can then go ahead and work with. And so we'll go ahead and click on create. And this usually takes, 2-3 minutes, something like that, for it to go ahead and provision the application. So what it's doing now is it's staging this application in Bluemix. Once again, the application runtime is being staged. The other thing is that we have a set of Domino servers running on our Wow. So Ryan.
What I said this morning was correct.
Yeah, but that didn't happen this morning.
It's experimental, people.
No, I know. So here's the concern. And I saw this morning, and it bothered me because I knew I was not. I knew, as a trial user, have 2 gigabytes of memory allocated to you. So when you sign up for Bluemix, you get a 1-year trial. You get 2 gigabytes allocated to you. You can go ahead and use that as you so choose. So I came in here this morning and I was like, okay, I was just playing around, so I launched this ski to do, and when it came up, it said right here, come on, there, it said that, 0 bytes. I was like, well, that's not good. I did the math. It's really simple here. It's like, okay, I've got 512 megabytes allocated per each of these application instances. And I have 1, and I had another 1 at that point, so that does not equal 2 gigabytes. And so I was like, why is that? And I was picking this one of the guys, and he was saying, sometimes the dashboard's a little fluky. And I wrote it off as that because I knew it was going to work later. So still, I'm not sure exactly why it's thinking I have met my cap. So fortunately, I've already created one, and we're going to just kind of jump to the punchline here. So when it's going through that, at first it would show that your application is staging. Once it gets staged, it would then go ahead and allow me to go ahead and launch the application. So if I can launch it directly from here, I can go in, and this is the to-do application that I was alluding to before, which was developed by Brian to show people how to use responsive XPages capabilities. So we can see here that we have the ability to navigate through our application. We have some navigation here on the left. We have the dashboard control up here on the right. I don't have any urgent items right now, so I can just, the only thing I do, I have one thing in here. I had to get my son new skis. I need to do that by December. I accomplished that last week because there's a summer sale. So I was happy about that. Let me just go in and, let's see, eat fried chicken in Atlanta. And yum. All right, due date, that would be tomorrow. And so we'll go ahead and say that, and the priority was high. So I can go ahead and save that. I can go ahead and see it here. And fortunately, because of the people I met on my way out of the hotel last night, they're going to a place that had excellent fried chicken. I have now I can mark that complete. So I'm very happy about that. Just showing you some of the responsive things here. So in the nav bar control at the top, and we also have the navigation here on the left. One of the nice things is that if we go ahead and resize this now, we see that our application icons start to get stacked. So as opposed to having the controlled dashboard spread out across the top, the icons are now stacked. We see that we've lost the navigation on the left. We now have the ability to go ahead and still navigate here by clicking on that and seeing that again. So we can go ahead and do that. We can go ahead and hide it. We see that our various buttons at the bottom would continue to be stacked. Everything gets resized for you nicely. So the nice thing is that we can go ahead and build this application once. It renders appropriately and gives you a good look and feel. An experience when you're working on a desktop, laptop, let's say, when you're working on a tablet or working on a smartphone. So I think, there's always the decision, do I go ahead and provide a mobile experience as a mobile web application, or do I go ahead and build it as a native mobile application? What I say is, unless you're really darn sure that it warrants a native mobile application, a good way to start off is certainly with a mobile web application. Will likely, and oftentimes meet the requirements of your end users. And if it doesn't, and you need to go native after that, so be it. You can go ahead and do that. But the cost to, provide a solution for multiple device types is much lower, when you're doing a mobile web application. So, now with XPages, you can go ahead and do that. Let's go back over to the dashboard here. There's a couple things I wanted to show you here. If we go into the runtime here, I just want to show you where you can get some other additional information. So in this case, once again, I've got one instance running here. I can go ahead and see the various memory usage here for this application. If I come back over here, I can click on Start Coding. So when you go ahead and create the to-do application, what it's doing is creating that design NSF for you. If you come over here, you can go ahead and click on Download Starter Code, and what that's going to do is going to download that to-do NSF_design for you, so you can save that on your local machine and then open it up in Designer and start to work with it. It's done as a zip file, so you would then go ahead and within Designer, open that up, it would extract it. One other step you need to do is you need to create a place once it's brought into Designer for it to be stored on disk, so that then when you go to deploy that back up to Bluemix, you can do that. A couple other things I wanted to show you here was the documentation. We have documentation for the runtime, for the service, for the build pack itself, and there's some documentation on bringing existing applications up to Bluemix there. So go out in each of the various things, be it the runtime, the service, or the boilerplate, you can go ahead and get good documentation. The other thing I'll mention is that we have been doing some really good, let me go back to how they get over there. Wow, what happened there? Oh, that's my download, yeah. What happened to we've been doing some really good videos recently that have been shared by the team. They're out on YouTube. You can, there's various blog articles to support that up on the Bluemix blog on DeveloperWorks. The one other thing I wanted to show you here is the XPages NoSQL database. If you come into this, you can go ahead and launch an interface that allows you to get information you'll need to work with it from the database service. So it's going to show you a bunch of information here. What things are going, so, all right. So we see an ID and username. So this is important. You can go ahead and download this directly from here. You can go ahead and click on this to see your password that you would need to use with this ID. This is a Notes ID. You would then go ahead and switch this ID from within Designer. You would then be signing your various applications that you're building with that ID. We also have information like the host name, the IP address, and the server name. This would be important to get to the database service itself. You would create a notes connection document to go ahead and do that. And then we can see additional database details here. And we can see that I have a number of various database services that I've created here. So you can go ahead and scroll through those. The one other thing I just wanted to quickly show you here was in Designer. We've done a number of things here to make it easy to work with Bluemix from Designer. So if I go into Preferences, the first thing I would see here is my Bluemix server. This is pointing, you would choose either in this case, the NG is the Dallas server. For all of those here from Europe, this is the London data center. It doesn't get as utilized as the Dallas one, so please utilize that one. And then you would go ahead and specify your password here. These are actually to log into Bluemix, you need an IBM ID. So this is your IBM ID credentials here to log in. You can then go ahead and test that directly from here to make sure that you've gone ahead and configure it correctly. And it's just being very slow. But it does. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't have a job when I come back. That would be disconcerting. But all this worked a little while ago up in my room. Maybe the Wi-Fi is better on the 25th floor and it likes Bluemix more. So here are the two. We have the to-do data, and in here we don't have any. We have forms, we have views. We don't have any real XPages in here because all this is really doing is acting as a data repository. In this one, we have the design. So here we have our to-do _ design. Here we would have our XPages, our custom controls, etc. that you would then go ahead and modify and then redeploy up to Bluemix. There is one thing in here called the Bluemix manifest. This controls some of the various properties and settings that you would have associated with your application. So we have the ability to go ahead and set various environment variables and provide other settings here. So once you've gone ahead and made your changes, you would go up here and we have a icon here that allows you to go ahead and interact with Bluemix. We can go ahead and deploy our application. We could configure it for deployment. That's where that's basically just defining a folder on disk where this would then be deployed for subsequent deployment to Bluemix. So I'm sorry that either my memory quota really did run out or there is something wrong with my account, which is more than likely because, once again, 512 plus 512 does not equal 2G. So let's, we've still got a couple minutes. I'm just going to run through these kind of quickly. So it really is a loosely coupled architecture. We go ahead, we have various app instances loaded into runtime and bind those to various services. What is the runtime comprised of? So basically, it's a lightweight Domino web container. We've taken the Domino server, as you know and love it today. We've stripped out as much as we can that is not pertinent to running XPages as a runtime. We have more optimization we're looking to do there in the future. 901 Fix Pack 3 with some additional fixes, and we'll be bumping this up as we go forward. It will be 90X next when we get there. We have the extension library runtime in here, so it's the latest runtime here for from OpenNTF. which we contribute out there. And then we're going to be leveraging this Lotus Social Business Toolkit in there. We're going to be working on some examples here on how you'd be able to integrate your XPages applications with Connections Cloud social services here. The thing is, it is extensible, and we've had some discussion on that. I've got a slide coming up or two on that in a second. The NoSQL database service is multi-tenant, and yes, Domino is not multi-tenant, but we're kind of making it work as one here for this service. Integrates the runtime applications via a service broker, not intended to host production data. So the database service, and I have put together another slide to more clearly convey this, and we'll look at that in a second, but it really is a playground for application development. So here is kind of the subset of the architecture slide we looked at before. We have our XPages design and stuff up here for our runtime. It's been bound to the NoSQL database service that we stand up and manage here through this service broker. But this is really not meant for production. It is, it's a Domino server that is shared amongst many people. We do it in such a way that, you're not seeing other people's data. We protect you that. We give you a directory structure that allows you to only see your NSFs. But still, it's being shared by multiple people. If something happens here due to somebody's application, it's going to take it out for other people. So, that's why it is not for production. It's a playground, okay? I want to stress that because people have misinterpreted exactly what we're doing with this. What do we do from a production perspective? We can either stand up a Domino server in the cloud on SoftLayer or on some other cloud, let's say, or we can go with a hybrid architecture where your Domino server remains on premises. Speaking to customers and partners, we're getting a lot of interest around this because they do want to keep that on premises. How would we go ahead and connect these two? Well, we would still have some kind of a Domino service instance which would tell the application here how to go ahead and authenticate and what credentials are needed, etc., with this Domino server here. What we want to get to is the point where we have something that we can stand up here, host, and manage for you. That's still, there's a bunch of work going in that area, investigations, proving out some things, so that we do get to something that's kind of more of a seamless experience to what we have here, but it's suited for production. It would be a single-tenant Domino server. So, you would rest assured that, your data integrity would be dedicated to you. Security would all be in place. But we want to make it done via that same kind of simple metaphor of adding a service from the Bluemix dashboard. So that's what we're working on. So hopefully that's pretty clear. If you have more questions on that, we can maybe entertain them at the end, or we can you can see me afterwards. I'm here today and tomorrow. We talked about the Designer Bluemix tooling here. So, how do I get started? So, you get a Bluemix account. If you don't already have one, you get one free for a 30-day trial. What did I say a year before? I'm sorry. That's me. I get it in year allotments. Or IBM, sorry.
Only a gig now.
Maybe I don't now. Maybe my
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some email wait.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so Domino Designer 901, you're going to want to be using that. If you don't already have that, you can certainly go ahead and download that from Developer Works for free. Install the latest extension library. Version 13, which is the one that came out in July to complement our experimental release, is the one you'll want to use because that gives you the designer tool in addition to the runtime stuff. So where do you ask questions, provide feedback? There's some, because it's experimental, it's not formally supported, but there is some forums on Developer Works here. We suggest you tag your questions with, Bluemix, XPages runtime, and/or XPages service. A lot of people tag them with both. So there's some good question and answers that are already up there. That's where we are monitoring that and can provide additional feedback. As always, there's additional XPages forums out there for you to go ahead and leverage. They're great resources. So, there's been a lot of questions around, can I extend the runtime? Because people have done a lot of extensions on their own, they want to go ahead and do that. So the answer is yes. Right now you can, provided, you can do this by including shared plugins in directory at the root of your app deployment directory here. So if you do that, then they get packaged up with the NSF and brought up to the runtime, and they will go ahead and run. But that is not necessarily suitable for all kinds of Java code that you want to leverage within your Domino applications. So security, what we're from the build pack, the Java code within XPages apps, they execute under a privileged JVM security model, and this is governed by the Java.policy file. So this is similar to what people have been doing, on premises. You've had to go ahead and modify the Java policy file, for on premises. You can certainly go ahead and do that. Up in the runtime today, you cannot, and that's been the challenge. So people have been asking, all right, and we've said, all right, we know we need to address this. We're an experimental. We're going to keep coming out with new build packs. So in the next build pack, we're going to have the ability that will allow you to go ahead and change that through various environment variables that you'll be able to go ahead and configure within Domino Designer. So we're going to improve the tooling there to allow you to easily go ahead and do that and set those environment variables. When will this become available? Hopefully next week. That's what we're shooting for. I think the build pack is in good shape. We're just about buttoned up the Domino Designer tooling enhancements, so we just have to package up the next XPages extension library release. Hopefully, you'll see it mid to late next week. So I think, that's something I know that a lot of you as XPages developers have been looking for. So what's the roadmap? So we were out there, we were experimental, we got out in July, we were trying to get out right here. We ran into a little bit of what's called IBM bureaucracy. Right over there. Getting executive signatures on certain things takes a little more time than one might anticipate. But we got there, so that's good. Beta, we're looking to get to beta, I would say probably early Q4, and then GA this puppy for the end of the year. That is our plan, which we're marching to. I think we're making really good progress. So what we want is you, as a community, to go ahead, use this, give us feedback, be it via the forums, you can contact me directly, whatever. We really want to hear your use cases, how you anticipate using this. We're starting to get some really good real-world use cases from partners and customers. It's helping us prioritize what we need to do to get this to be a production-ready offering. And so that's what we're marching towards. So with that, I think we have, actually, you know what? I started 7 minutes late because lunch ran late, so I am on time. So I'd like to open it up to questions at this point. John,
Not a question, this won't be new, but we need your help, right?
Yes.
The Bluemix partner
Yes.
program still doesn't exist. It has to be fixed. People do not want to put their credit cards in.
Understood.
And we had the discussion yesterday. I had a discussion with Sandy before she left.
Yep.
You guys have got to get that up and running.
Right. So, I mean, when Bluemix executives heard that we were marching down this path, what they want is they want more developers to come to Bluemix. They reached out to me. I said, well, yes, I have a large pool of developers. They would love to come to Bluemix. And so we're talking about various things to help incent developers, be they partners, be they customers, whomever, to come to Bluemix.
So
I know there's a number, and you may be aware of some of the other things that are being looked at for various groups.
So the ammo is AWS, Heroku, Azure.
Yeah.
Free developer
Right.
accounts, no question.
Yes, exactly. So, yep, you heard it. And pushing for it. So I think you were next.
You say this is experimental,
Yes.
and it's going to be a while before it's non-experimental.
Right.
What are you still really emphasizing the on-premise designer and client and
Most definitely.
designer and the next release 9.2? Because I don't know when
Right.
It's been years.
Right, exactly. So, right now, if you're not on 901, you should be on 901. If you're not on Fixpack 4, you should be on Fixpack 4. That's your main objective as, people who develop and run applications, I would say. The team that is responsible for Designer, XPages runtime, et cetera, programming model for on-premises, well, the XPages and designer teams, kind of shifted gears a bit here to work on this. Before that, though, a lot of the stuff that we're delivering, the responsive, the relational, that stuff has been well baked for a while. People are using that in production all over the place. So it's really bringing it in as a formal set of assets that are being supported. We're doing additional development work on the encryption system. That's been moving forward for a while. We kind of put that on hold because there's no need for us to immediately finish that because we don't have a release vehicle to give it to you. Until we have a release vehicle, which is dependent on a bunch of other teams, be it Notes, be it the Domino server team, be it whomever, it's not an imminent priority for us. Now that we've locked down the plan on that, yes, we've got a time frame whereby we need to manage the delivery and GA of this by the end of the year, yet still finish up the work we need to do for the 9.0 X.Next release that will be coming after that.
Guesstimate on that?
On the 9.0 X.Next business. But I have to.
Not in 2015.
It's not in 2015, I will tell you that, unfortunately.
It's been a long time since the last release.
Yes, I believe somebody.
25 months, something like that.
Somebody, I know. And believe me, I don't know, maybe I still need a new stick. But I have been using a stick on various people to get this to happen. And others have too.
I'm gonna send Roy over there.
We know it's gotta come soon, it can't come soon enough.
You can only hit them so hard, so often.
I know, because then they can't deliver. Right, well, that's it.
105 less word.
Yeah, sorry, I'll go there and then I'll work my way over here.
I understand. I understand that you've explained the priorities and explained the things that we're doing and that's baked and the process of getting on. Is there any words on what the next, the stuff that isn't in a release plan? Where's, what's the 2016, 2017 kind of strategic more? Any thought on that?
So, from an app dev perspective for me, I'm looking after stuff beyond this now. So it's certainly APIs and extensibility for the cloud-based services. That's really important. There's a number of things that are starting to come into play. They're more on the connection side now, but we're working on starting to implement that for the verse side of the equation. There's the ability for us to have some kind of a marketplace where assets can be delivered by partners, consumed by customers, and there's a bunch of work that needs to go on in order for those two things to work seamlessly. The ability to go ahead and provide an application a key so that that is an authenticated access point for that application against the service. The ability for extensions to be able to be registered and manage all that. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to go into place there. From a Domino perspective, I think, we didn't really talk about it today, but the REST API. So I think, we need to get to job A. We need to upgrade our OSGI container. We need to have an upgraded servlet container because a lot of you are leveraging, rolling your own servlets. I know Eric's on his head, great articles out there by him and other members of the community. You guys have, you're right at the cusp of having a very modern, compelling set of capabilities there which you can leverage. We just need to move the bar forward a little bit. The fact that we now have a vehicle that allows us to release things more quickly on the cloud. We've talked about this cloud first initiative across, from smart cloud nodes to verse, they're coming down. What we're doing from a Bluemix perspective compared to our on-premises code base is much more closely aligned than what they're doing on the messaging side. Because they're in Connections Cloud, there's a lot of other infrastructure in place there. They do certain things in certain ways that make it more challenging, let's say, to bring that down on premises. From us, I think we're going to have a much better opportunity. So I want to push for, really starting to accelerate the delivery of things. And then the other thing is design. What do we do from a tooling perspective? So we've got the REST API stuff, the DAS stuff. I think we see more work coming there, but the ability for you to roll your own. And then from a tooling perspective, somehow I have to unshackle ourselves from the Notes client. And it's, whether for XPages, it's bringing that out, using that in its own Eclipse as a set of plugins. And then the other thing I think we're starting to see is certainly, people are looking at a lot of other web development frameworks. And that's when you're going at Domino really as a backend service through REST. And so, once again, providing the right REST API infrastructure for you to do that, and allowing you to roll your own using techniques that are suitable for you. So that's what I see. Yes, you had a question?
Yeah, we're behind schedule, but our plan now is to be at 9:01
Yep.
by the beginning of the year.
Right.
And so now I'm pondering, should we just wait?
No.
Or
I would not wait, because I think the upgrade from 901 to 902, so you have nodes, clients, and servers. So how much process is there for upgrading the, once you get to 901, what's it to go to 902?
Well, hopefully
for the
not
server.
much for
Right,
our-
exactly. And I think, you'll find that you're coming from 8.5x, or where are you coming from?
851.
851. Yeah, you definitely got to move. You'll find, I think, that the move to the 9x code stream really is from an app dev perspective, pretty seamless. I don't know if anybody wants to refute that, if you have challenges. The feedback we've gotten, pretty generally, is that moving from 8.5x to 9, very painless.
Yeah, the testing we've done so far hasn't
Good.
provided too many.
Good. Okay, you, and then I'll come to you, David.
You partially answered my question, but I just want to emphasize that I'm writing code a lot every day, so I'm really sensitive about the workflow, how I'm doing it. And
Yes.
Designer makes it sometimes challenging to
I
have
know.
an efficient workflow. So do you have any resources or any people who are actually looking at how to make it more user-friendly or more efficient writing code?
More efficient writing code. So are you doing XPages development, or are you doing
Yes.
Dust Climbing? Okay. So I think there are things that we're looking at to make that more efficient. I think, the main thing is are you leveraging a lot of Java, writing a lot of Java to complement your? Okay.
I should, I don't.
You don't. So are you using server-side JavaScript?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's very challenging.
That's the challenge.
Refactoring is not
Refactoring.
working in SSJS.
Okay.
Or formatting of SSJS doesn't work.
Yeah, so we know we have some challenges there. How many people here are using SSJS? Okay. And then how many people are not using it, and just using Java? Okay. And then, right, then I expect when I say both, a lot of you will vote. Okay, all right. So, yeah, I think, there's a number of things that we are looking at doing there. It's a matter of resource and priorities, as always. I still think that the number one thing is somehow getting the version of Eclipse bumped. Because, a lot of the things that these editors are based on other Eclipse assets that we have either gotten from other groups within Rational or other parts of IBM or somewhere else. And so, being able to move the bar forward on that is really getting us up. David?
Just so I'm clear on that Bluemix thing, even when it goes general and it's out of experimental and beta, we're never going to store production data in that? We have to tie back to something
in that,
else?
as it
That's the
exists
plan?
today. Exactly. So we wanted you to have an easily to use NSF container up there for storing data. That, as it exists today, will not be suitable for production because it is, once again, it's Domino serving multiple customers.
Okay.
I wish I could say, we're going to have a Domino multi-tenant application server in the near future. I don't see that happening. So we're still going to need to have some kind of, it's a single tenant solution for storing data. What we need to do is make something very easy for you to do that. Whether we keep this around as a playground or not, I don't know. But we need to solve that other problem. And that's what we're working on. Let's see, so you were next, and then...
You and I exchanged some correspondence on JDBC support.
Oh, great, all right, thanks. So,
Would you
who's
just talk
using the JDBC features of XPages right now in production? All right, so you are? Okay. Test? Okay. So you may want to talk to both of them to get their feedback on how it's working. I can certainly put you in contact with some other developers who are using it in production very successfully. And happy to have a further conversation with you on that.
Thank you.
Yes, and then I'll go to you, Howard. Yep, go ahead.
I understand it's a sandbox out there, but I would like to upload some test data. So I wasn't sure if that Eclipse
So you can do that. There are steps on there on how to, in the documentation we have up on Bluemix, there are steps that you can follow to go ahead and bring a copy of a NSF up to the NoSQL database service today.
With data.
Excuse me?
With the data.
You just want to push the data? Well, basically what you're doing, you would take a copy of your NSF and just upload that.
All right.
Somebody was asking the other day, somebody was asking about replication, and so then I started to poke on them really why they were asking that. And that brought to light that they were thinking that was going to be suitable for production, because all its use cases were around backup and some other things. And I was like, no, right now you cannot replicate it, because we cross-certify, we can't give out those certifiers that credentials, because once again, it's a non-multi-tenant Domino server acting as a suited multi-tenant Domino server. So, Howard?
Hey Pete, I was just wondering, like the IBM design language that we heard about today, does
Yes.
that like relate to a future theme that would follow those standards? So it looks like what he showed was beyond text-based standard. He actually talked about sample
Right,
codes
so
and
I
stuff.
have not heard of a specific standard yet. What they're talking about is, that was where we had the reference to the glorious One UI, and then the response from the audience, and then we had, the diverse UI and that kind of look user experience. So what we're considering is definitely providing a theme that would mimic the verse experience. And I think, we've had some requests for that already. So exactly how we do that would be determined, but I think, we would certainly leverage design language capabilities for defining how we would do that. All right. So now that we've used our late start due to lunch, we are exactly at 60 minutes. So thank you very much.